Art rage. Okay,
But this is good.
so I'm gonna apologize to people that are watching us live. OBS is having some issues. It disconnected and reconnected, but we're good. We can still keep going. Um, so this week I finally we went to the state park and had a walk. Yay! Like this is my getting back on track. I keep saying I'm gonna start diet tracking again. Well, I mean tracking my intake, because that's really all it took to kind of just discipline myself. But we were going to the gym and we were going hiking every weekend, and with everything, they even shut the state parks down for a while. We couldn't do that either. So we went and we did just the short loop. We were gonna do a longer one Sunday, but didn't get to it. And I hope to just make that more regular again. Like they opened things up and then it was raining, and people aren't very good at distancing, which is irritating. But surprisingly, we went and the parking lot was full, and I was really worried. But it was mostly bikers um, using the bike trails, so it was a nice leisurely. I think we only passed one person um, that was too slow, but not overly crowded. And I am looking forward to doing more of that because wow, I felt so much better. Like that whole it's not a lie, folks. When you
Yeah.
get active and then you get more energy instead of being worn out. So I'm excited about having done that. Finished my shelf, like finished the painting of the coffin shaped bookshelf, and on the inside I got shiny like mirror, but it doesn't truly mirror. It's contact paper, so that's not gonna work when you put it in there, but it looks so cool. I am so glad I did that. I wish I had a stencil. I would like to put something that looks like lace around the border, but painted. So I may or may not do anything else with it, but I am happy with it right now. And I finally started painting the saw blade I was taking about. I used some steel wool and got most of the rust off and put a coat of paint on to kind of prime it. So I'll be working on that this week. And we binged and watched all of American Horror Story Apocalypse. We hadn't watched that show in a long time, and then we went back a few months ago. We watched Hotel, that was recommended to us, and then I we had actually started Apocalypse a long time ago and stopped. I get triggered um, about nuclear war apocalyptic stuff.
Hmm.
Like I can't watch the beginning of Fallout even, just because of when I grew up. But I was okay. We had already watched the hardest part. Then it goes back and it brings the witches back, and it was really a little disappointed the ending, but it was pretty damn good overall. So, I guess on to our discussion topic. This week we're going to talk about cancel culture. Now, this has been flying around an awful lot again lately. It's considered a variant rename for call out culture. So, what we're really looking at is the evolution of online shaming. I did, I looked at a lot of articles, I read a lot of points of view. Um, I had been in discussions about it online recently because people are like, we have to stop cancel culture. I'm like, why would I not vote with my dollars per se? I don't want to contribute to a cause that I'm against, so I won't give that person my money. And I saw cancel in particular the words like cancel culture as like canceling a show. Being
Hmm.
during the Me Too movement is when it seems to be credited as becoming very big as far as it's famous people haven't done something and you call them out and then their shows get canceled, their career is canceled. And so canceled originally seemed to refer to whatever media they were involved in.
Hmm.
So, but now it's kind of it's interchangeable. No one's saying call out culture anymore. It's all become one thing. The slang is cancel that person. As a matter of fact, all the dictionary websites, WebsterDictionary.com, all of them, they have not redefined cancel yet that I could find, but they all have something where this is on our watch list. We're watching this word definition change and working on the new definition in this context for it.
Yeah, I would assume that it's already in like the Urban Dictionary.
It is in the Urban Dictionary, but that
It's
doesn't count.
I mm, I feel like I can see both sides of like why you could use cancel culture to um to great effect, but I can also see why it could be really damaging if people are uninformed. Um like to my mind it's an internet kind of mob mentality almost.
Yes.
Um and that can be a good or a bad thing because sometimes it takes a mob to get something done or what have you, but
And the
they're not always the most informed,
right. And the internet has made room for being able to call people out and get actions made and things accomplished with calling them out. However, like you said, it's not always the best vehicle because people don't go further, they're not informed. And we have that whole armchair warrior bullshit that people think they're doing some good just by doing that. And I mean, I found video from Obama talking about it years ago with just basically that's not activism. Don't mistake it for activism to be doing the armchair, calling people out and spreading things on the internet. That's different than opening communication. I saw a really interesting article from who was this? I'm gonna find the right source for this one. It's like this opinion article in the New York Times saying I'm a black feminist and I think call out culture is toxic, and it has some really good pointers and points of view in there that I hadn't really thought about. And I have other articles I'll put on our website for folks. But if it's not opening dialogue, then it's not addressing the cultural concern you're trying to address, right? But some people, it's a powerful tool, and I think sometimes we need to fucking use it. Like
well, there's one
the
of our
BLM ones I've been seeing lately.
well, yeah, but I mean that somebody in our comments. There's a case of a woman who, before a flight, posted a joke on Twitter, and by the time she landed, she lost her job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
that. She was the one who said she was going to Africa and she hoped she didn't get AIDS because she's an
Oh,
insensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, not to say she didn't deserve it. I'm not saying that, but that's how powerful it is.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's really not a good thing to say. Well, like, that's
Hey, number
really...
one,
and the company
don't
has
do
every
that.
right. Who wants
Yeah,
to be represented by someone like that? And that happened to Amy, the Karen in the park with her dog. And I mean, don't be on video abusing your dog and using your white privilege for evil, unless you. There's a Twitter thread that I'll also post that's in our notes about it, where one of the points of view expressed it was, well, also called consequences.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are like, oh, I have freedom of speech, I can say whatever I want. But there are consequences, and this allows us to enact that. Like, there are people that can't be helped. The person I was talking about before who was complaining about cancel culture was mad about people not going to Wendy's anymore because of a few franchise owners had donated all this money to Trump or something. And I was like, well, yeah, but I mean, personally, yeah, that's not educated. You don't just never go to a Wendy's again. But personally, I look and see, is it the company? Is it the franchise owner? Like, I won't go to that Wendy's. But like Chick-fil-A, for instance, I'm sorry that, our local franchise owner has been good to me before I realized the company overall had that practice. And that's where the money ends up. So I won't go there. But they would locally, they'll give you money if you're building a habitat house. They treat their employees well, things like that. But I'm still going to choose not to spend my money there. And there are people that don't do that research. Then again, it's not going to hurt at that corporate level. But there are people that can't be helped and should be canceled. I mean, I've seen a lot of it lately with the BLM posting these, like this dude on his business site, like N-word will be N-word and we should kill them all. Yeah, tell everybody don't give him your business. Let's just do that. Let's just cancel that. I'm not going to be like, oh, that's not someone that I'm going to call and try to have a conversation with about it.
No.
There was a local business where this woman said some very questionable things, and my friend called her, and they couldn't agree, but they had a civil conversation on it, and then followed up that post, and, you know, the information can get out there, and you can do things to improve our culture with it.
Yeah, because you're just trying to. Initially, it's trying to convey a grievance or something. You want to share information, but then, people aren't always doing their research, so they don't know, or they maybe it's just piling on. Oh yeah, I also had a bad experience there. Therefore, let's cancel them. They're rude and terrible, and you got to find a balance with it. So, but on the other hand, like, okay, we have the internet, and maybe early on we thought, oh, we have nobody's going to know who we are behind our screen name, but you don't have that luxury anymore.
Right.
It's
The anonymity.
really easy to connect and, have consequences for actions, such as you go off on a rant on your Facebook and your boss sees that. Or the one about the person posted the Elmo I'm pooping on the employer's dime and got fired because one of his boss saw that and it was like, I find that offensive. Fired. And it sucks. Like, we live in a right to work state, so yeah, our bosses can fire us for whatever they deem.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you have to balance it with just consequences for actions. Like, is this something to really be upset and passionate and put all of your energy behind, or are you just kind of ranting the rant?
Yeah,
and it's okay to rant. Just, maybe
we
select your audience a bit more. You don't need to tell everybody in the world that Applebee's was mean to you or something.
we live in a hyper connected era. So there's always like the 6 degrees of separation thing where you don't know who's going to share your post.
Yeah.
You don't know who's going to see it. Unless you're like super, like, I'm going to tag these specific people to say the specific thing, or only post it in this one group. Even if you post it in a not even a private group, but a like a closed, like, it can still be seen.
Oh, yeah, somebody could screen capture it and share it elsewhere.
Yeah.
We know people who do that.
So, if you're going to out yourself as a terrible person, there's going to be consequences.
Can be, should be. It's interesting to me that Me Too was a big wave in increasing this movement because people realized, like Ray said, we're in the and well, you both said, we're in this hyper-connected culture now. Things are different. So there was the beginning of us all being on the internet, and people could hide behind anonymity, and that has changed. And then we saw famous people and structural changes happen. Like, look at Weinstein, right? And Cosby, and how it used to be so hard to come forth, and you needed all this backup and many, many cases and have to prove your point before you could take any action against a person in power. And now with the internet and the media grabbing onto these things, calling the people for an interview, sensationalizing the story, you can get someone canceled. And people just kind of jumped on that bandwagon, and the people who are in their own little world and don't quite realize that, oh, this is my page, I can say whatever I want, it's my First Amendment right to say whatever I want, are ending up losing their jobs, losing their incomes over just being irresponsible about the way they speak and not willing to accept the consequences, or just not caring. I mean, there are them out there, these people, they're like, well, I don't want your business then. Okay.
It's interesting. Actually, the first time I heard of cancel culture was about, via YouTube. That's where actually I heard about it, and I think and TikTok, because I, you know, I watch a couple of not a couple. I watch a couple of these drama channels just because I'm like I don't pay attention to a lot of the YouTube and TikTok drama because
Right.
well
It's
TikTok
like so transient. Short
Tik
attention span theater.
I am about to age myself. TikTok has a lot of youngins on it, and they are full of drama and teenagers, and I'm just like, you guys have fun. You have fun on TikTok? None, it's not my thing. Um, except for the Russian lady who says hello makeup. That was funny. Anyway, moving on. Um, so I'm watching these drama channels. I think one of them's called Spill or something like that, and they start talking about cancel culture, and I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense as the next evolution of you know internet culture.
Right.
Mhm.
And the call out that it evolves from. So, and on that, what are your thoughts on something that was a long time ago? Because that's very much part of the call out culture of something's digging up something someone said a long time ago, and they may or may not have apologized for it or apologized to the satisfaction of someone. We've touched on before the whole realizing later someone else, an artist you like, trying to separate the art from the artist. Like, what do you do when someone that you love and admire and was inspired by, it turns out they said some things that were very problematic, for instance, or did some things that are very problematic? Does it matter to you how they've handled it since?
I think it depends on the artist, and it depends on the person. It's very subjective because maybe you have let's say for example there's a book series you like by an author who's starting to show a lot of terribleness about themselves. you know in that instance you have to decide if the memories and that you've made with others about bonding over the source material, I guess, quote unquote, and if it's worth it to you to kind of keep those separate and still enjoy the material while not agreeing with the artist.
Well, like,
And
you
maybe
can't
maybe
unenjoy something. Well, some people
yeah.
can. Some people do feel they get in that situation and they feel they cannot watch the media without thinking about it anymore or
Yeah,
read
and
it.
and that's going to be a very subjective, very personal thing of can you reconcile enjoying something and not liking the person who made it. And if you can't, then you can't. And that's unfortunate, but you're going to find more things to like. You'll find new artists to be inspired by. You'll find new things to enjoy. And,
And I know I
that's just
talked,
how it is.
before. Well, we were talking before the show, and we talked a little bit last week about J.K. Rowling and her situation right now. And I'm so disappointed that she's doubling down. Like, she had praised Stephen King, and then Stephen King said trans women are women, and she like rescinded her tweet liking him. I'm like, all right. Now bitch is being petty. That's an entirely different thing than I got from reading, even though I disagreed with. She had done the research and the work to form her opinion, try to understand other opinions in her essay, and I was like, okay, we can disagree. I get that. But then petty actions like that, I'm like, all right, no, I'm done. I still love those books. I love that world. I'm not going to buy products that she would end up with proceeds from that are related. I would recommend the book to children, but I'd say get it from the library. It's already purchased. You know, get it used.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't give her my money anymore. And that's kind of how I tend to separate. I've done the same thing with Orson Scott Card.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, did he turn out to be awful. That broke my
Mm-hmm.
heart. I was in the middle of loving everything I found of his and finding more. Ew. Um, but I can separate, and I'm glad I can. It doesn't wreck everything. And I understand people who can't. Um, and we're happy to come to our book club, find things you'll like.
Well, definitely it seems like the medium of the art too, because there are a lot of visual artists like Picasso and Dali. They were not good guys. They were not. They were cancel culture would have been called on them because they were not the best people.
Mm.
But
Don't
I can
tell me
still like
Dali was bad.
appreciate
Mm-hmm.
their paintings. I can still look at it. I have some solace in the fact that I don't have to support them to see their works. I can go to a museum where I can see not only them, but I can see many other great pieces of art by better, uh,
Mm-hmm.
more moral artists if if I want.
Yeah.
In fact, it gives me a whole range of people that I can discover and learn about that I might not have before. So I think it comes down to kind of voting with your dollar. Like if you like the art, you can there are ways to enjoy the art still with making sure that person is not profiting from it if you disagree with the morals and the presentation that they're giving of themselves or trying to backpedal and change their world or whatever.
I can really see that feeling different about a medium like painting because I I think with a physical art form rather than writing, it it does strike me as easier to separate if someone if they were morally or ethically problematic to you. There's still very much a part of that where you can look at well, we often look at artists as tortured in some way, right? Or whatever expression of difficult emotional things that there aren't words for. Um, I think especially in things like Impressionism. I mean, how much of Van Gogh's best work was when he was recovering in a mental hospital? Some of his best things were being poured out. So, from that point of view, I think it's easier to separate and be able to look at a painting and really think it's amazing and intriguing and also go, man, they were broken. At
Yeah,
least something good came out of it.
it's especially easy if they're dead. That came out real wrong.
No,
No,
I
I
get
have
that.
an easier time
That's the
forgiving dead people.
Lovecraft loophole for me.
Oh god. Sorry. That came out of my mouth and I was like, oh, that went dark.
But I do feel like if people own it too, if they own their mistakes, if they're like, "Man, I messed up. I I was not thinking, I was insensitive," cuz we're never okay, the majority of us are in a constant state of change. We are always learning new things. We are always growing. Our mind is always expanding. We're going to be absorbing new ideas and hopefully growing because of that. So if somebody can be like, "Yeah, you're right. That stuff I tweeted 5 years ago, I'm sorry. That was really insensitive. I understand and that was if you own it, I feel like you should be given another chance
That, yeah,
because that is part of growth. That is part of maturity.
I agree, and that to me, that's very important to me. And the manner of the apology matters to me. Like, I'm sorry if it offended you, does not fly with me. I'm
Nope.
sorry I was wrong is how an apology should, well, almost begin and end, other than further conversation of what is your understanding, what is my understanding of this. I think people that are well intentioned but trying to use call out or cancel culture, when they're well intentioned, they're bringing that out, they're tagging the person in it, and then they're engaging in trying to solve what the offense was. And that's how this should be used. But it is often very toxic and misused, or people just trying to get attention. Um,
God
some
damn it,
people think
Twitter.
it's not a big deal,
God
Do you
damn it,
think it's-
Twitter.
right?
Well,
You
yeah,
can't have that conversation in 280 characters. Sorry, I know you think you're a master of the language, all of you out there, and your armchair activism badges. However, those conversations could not be had in that venue. Do we think it's working or it works? I mean, other than, yes, people get canceled sometimes, but for all these things I'm seeing lately, local businesses being, is it dangerous because they might become subject to an actual attack or someone go burn the place down? That does happen sometimes. Or is it, economically damaging in a serious way? Because there was a tweet here from Moira Donegan saying there's so much hand wringing about cancel culture, a phenomenon that seems to exist more in the imaginations of communicators than an actual reality. It's a moral panic about a moral panic.
I think it's actually something to be taken seriously because you never know who's going to take it farther. Like, sure, there's call out cancel, but like I said, you can be easily held accountable. There's nothing stopping somebody if they decide they really don't agree from them doxing you, from them like harassing you, from having to basically cause you to fear for your life because they've decided to make it their own personal mission to destroy you. I mean,
Yeah, actually,
that
that
is a
reminds
legit
me.
fear at this point.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, and I forgot to put it in the notes. There's a petition out there to try and take down these websites, and that's kind of a big cancel culture step that goes into another where I feel like deplatforming belongs in this category, and I think is often appropriate. There are a couple of websites out there where white supremacists have started them, and it's like a database of women, including addresses, names, place of work, where the kids go to school, pictures, and it's them. You can look up, like, don't date her until you check here if she's ever dated a black guy. And there's these two sites, and they're trying to get them taken down, and they have their who is set to private, so you can't see who owns the domains. And so the only recourse in that instance, for the activists is to try and get the domain holders or the server hosts to take it down.
Yeah, that's a that's a breach, a great big old breach of privacy for a lot of people, and
But we don't
that
really
needs to
have
go away. That needs to go away now.
Yeah. And I mean, that's
we need to
arguably
have
criminal.
Yeah.
but we don't really have any way to police and enforce online.
Yes.
Like if you call,
Yeah,
if you call
the
your local office about I'm being harassed online, they'll be like, "Sucks to be you."
Actually, that's not entirely true. If you know the source or can find it, or there are places the police can search for those sources. I was being harassed online by somebody that I knew that I had blocked, that I had, like, no, go away, we're done. And she had done things like she actually went and subscribed to Geek Grills to be able to get a message to me. Yeah, that was fun. Um, and I was able to show that trail of evidence. The officer came to my house. He spoke to me. He took it very seriously, even though it had moved to solely online. I felt reason she had access to finding out where I could live. I have a public persona, and he gave me the paperwork I needed to go get a domestic abuse restraining order. See, that's another. If
I'm
you
glad
know
they
the
were actually
person,
able
it's
to.
also classified as domestic abuse. If you've never met them, online harassment, you can still get a restraining order for that sort of thing. So there is some of that with online harassment you can do. However, when the person is anonymous, it is much harder to convince the authorities still that there is actual danger there.
Well, the legislation needs to start becoming more involved with online. I don't want to call it policing because that's not the right word, but
Yeah,
there needs
enforcement.
to
I
there
don't
needs
know.
it's and this is just a product of, the information age that we're living in and things moving very fast. It's changed so much in the past even 20 years that we don't have, like, we've started getting laws and things, about, things happening online, but they're behind. They're very much behind. I think I've talked about this before. It's very similar to when the written word, like, newspapers were first starting to be a thing.
But it's really complicated and tricky to do it that way, and I think that's why things like deplatforming, things, um, terms of service uh, enforcement that have been being pushed that Facebook finally is getting on board with.
Hmm.
Reddit just deplatformed some white supremacist sites. Stop the Donald had a lot of hate speech. Like enforcing those might be preferable because making creating legislation about it that doesn't interfere with freedom of the internet in general and doesn't end up actually censoring speech that isn't hate speech, that it commercializes all of it, is a very difficult line to walk, I think.
Yeah. And it may be that the best thing is that they give uh, power to whoever's in charge, or I don't know. It's difficult. It's hard to know what the right way forward is.
I mean, it's complicated. It's constantly being worked on, but it's interesting that this. I mean, our culture, as usual, cultural changes. Sometimes you have to change the rules. It
Yep.
changes the social contract. Um, honestly,
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing. Like when I first got online, it never would have occurred to me. Like the most I would interact with people was in chat rooms, and there were moderators in the chat rooms, and I could reach out to them and be like, "Hey, this person's being really creepy. How do I get?" Or I could just block that person,
yeah.
and they wouldn't know who I was. I was just some name in an AOL chat room. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
knew. It's harder to have that now, and there is that fine line. Like everybody wants free speech, but what do you do when that free speech becomes hate speech? Like
Well,
nobody.
on Twitch we
That's
have bots for that.
Yeah.
I think we have one banned word right now. And you can ban words, and I love it when we've got a good moderator with us who can drop the hammer on the sexist shit that occasionally happens in our chat. Um, but can we, self moderate? I'm
yeah.
interested
I
to
mean,
see where this ends up.
it,
I
and
don't
we're
think
kind of
cancel
seeing
culture
that.
is going away. It's
No.
becoming more and more normalized. Like it is evolving into
Yeah,
everyday use instead of it's not just famous people. It's everyone going after the Karens or the social justice warriors. Like, look at how that term evolved. The whole SJW thing. Like, I have a license plate frame that I had had on my car for, I don't know, 15 years or so, and it was my mother's before that. And it's like, work for peace and social justice. Like, these, but they took this legitimate term about people who work for social justice, turned it into an insult, and then people will call you that, and then you're losing friends, you're losing business because they disagree with you. And with that sort of thing, I mean, you just have to be able to take it. But some people don't. They're still trying to hide behind that anonymity, like those white supremacists that have those horrible websites. I hope they end up on criminal charges somehow. Because doxing, I mean, we talk about doxing like, okay, well, we know that's awful and it's against the terms of service everywhere and stuff. But then when it's in real life and people can come to your house, I know dating sites that are notoriously terrible about enforcing any of that. I have a friend who was harassed. Um, someone put a fake profile of him and said he was gay and said he liked big tough guys, and if he says no, it's just role play, and gave out his address, and he had no recourse. Like they just weren't listening and letting him prove that he was who he was. So there are very dangerous elements out there until we find solutions or people learn to use these things in a constructive manner to communicate and be real activists about it instead of just jumping online and spewing hate and it becoming viral because it takes one crazy to act on this shit. So use your power wisely.
Yeah.
We all have a platform now.
Yes.
Kinda. Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. That's why internet freedoms are so important. Anybody can have a platform. Voices are being heard that have not been heard. That this culture has grown so much through Me Too and BLM and those uses of it, and individuals being able to find these instances of heinous acts by individuals so that people can stop giving them their money and therefore giving them more power is fantastic. But yeah, there is a dark side to it.
Yeah, it's just the evolution of public shaming now. We just do it online.
Kind of. It went from
tomatoes on the street.
It went from dog shaming to kicking people off the internet.
Right. From like
so I
like it used to be gossip and now it's boycotts. I mean,
yeah, no, I like your takeaway from this is you use your power wisely.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's a good. That's
you
a good
could
one.
be a force of good or a force of evil
or a force of chaos.
Just
choose wisely.
My eldest son had a fantastic science teacher when he was very young who recognized how kind of ridiculously genius intelligent he was and just kept reminding him to use his power wisely. And it reminds me of that because he also got kicked out of the school play for sticking a fork in an outlet to see what it would do. Anyway, okay. So we will all try to use our power wisely. If you have something to say and want to chime in and call us out, we're glad to have a conversation with you about our points of view. So please do. Preferably email us at geekgrills@gmail.com. You could tweet us at geekgrills, but not the best place for that conversation. Sticking to that. So what are you grills most anticipating right now?
I'm going to be running another episode of the D&D Card Captors. They did not get a card last time.
Uh-oh.
But they got invited to a very fancy party where they're going to try and get a card. So that they went a direction I wasn't expecting and yet was expecting at the same time because I was expecting that they were going to do something that I wasn't expecting. If that makes sense. So
you always be prepared for that.
Yeah.
Very wise DM.
I get to make a bunch of noble NPCs that are going to look down their noses at them. Great. Because not a one of them has any noble blood, so it's gonna be hilarious. So that's me this week, and working on my crochet stuff, getting that done.
How about you, Ray?
I've got the Acquisitions Incorporated D&D game this Wednesday that I'm really looking forward to. That's on the Simulacra Studios, and then currently actually working on a drawing that I started of our D&D group in digitally. So that is my big digital art project. So hopefully I'll have that done. Maybe.
Maybe. What am
What are you
I
up to?
looking forward to? Tomorrow on Heresy and Hearsay at 7 p.m. on my channel, we'll be talking about the defund the police movement and what that actually means. Folks out there, our shows are not all this serious all the time.
No.
Just so you know. Um,
We balance it.
but
This happens to be one of
do.
the serious ones, yeah.
Yeah, it's serious. But I mean, don't do shit you should be ashamed of in the first place. There's another way to look at it. Um, I'm really looking forward to, after our production meeting break, our next show will be July 13th. I'll just mention that ahead of time because part of that is we should have our new theme song. Those of you out there who have not yet, follow Mike TV Live on Twitch. He streams hours and hours, many days a week, does all original songs. I'm a big fan. I've gotten to meet him. He's very supportive of our show. And
We've
actually, I
had
think
him on
he's
our
on.
show.
We've had him on our show. You can go
Yeah.
back and listen to that episode. And he's part of the Diamond Club, which we are also a part of. We might be able to raid him after this for any of you who have not seen him. But he's written us, well, we commissioned him to write us our own theme song, which I've wanted since we started the show. And so it's really cute, but he's doing like a full production. We've got a demo and he's gonna have that fixed up for us before our next show. The other thing
Yay.
is next between the show and that show, I'm getting a haircut. I've
Yay.
reached maximum length. It will only get this long. It goes about to my butt. And
Wow.
yeah, it was an experiment. It was like, how long will it get? My hairdresser and I have agreed with the shedding volume I've reached. This is how long it will get. So, and I talked to her today about what I think I'm gonna do with it. So I'm super excited about that. It's been a couple years.
Yay.
Can't wait
So
to
remember to come watch
Yeah.
us record live at twitch.tv/geekgrills on most Monday evenings, although our next one will be, as I mentioned, July 13th. That will be at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time.
Gotta have that production meeting.
Yes. Pick the next shows. Maybe we should lighten up a little.
Yeah, we'll do a funny one next time. It'll be good.
Yeah, we got this. So, in addition to the subs and bits we get on Twitch, we are supported by our amazing patrons, the greatest girlfriends on the internet, and you can become a patron at www.patreon.com/girls. And don't forget, if you have Amazon Prime, you can sub to us for free every month on Twitch. You can also just contact us with happier subjects if you want,
Yeah.
or lighter subjects.
And another way to show your support is by leaving us a review. You can do so on any of your podcast catchers. Leaving a review is free and they help our ranking, which helps other people find our podcast. Also, you can join us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter if you'd like to help spread the word.
So where can we find you grills on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitch and on Instagram under the name madcap_misc. That's MISC as in miscellaneous.
Ray?
You can find me on Instagram under Dapple Dame and on Twitch as Ray Ino.
And I can be reached at 9 of 12. That's a NINEOF12 on Twitter and Twitch. And you can hear me on the Heresy and Hearsay podcast. The Jen can be found at thejensays.com because she owns it, and you just get all her other stuff from there. Thanks for listening today, everyone. Good game.
Good game!
Good night.
GG. I'm gonna push the button.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Oh, that
There.
was an
That'll just make
that
it that tiny bit easier while I less
That was
editing to
intense.
put the Diamond Club bumper at the end.
Yep.
Yeah, Rob was in the chat saying that the laws on doxing are like sparse and specific.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, the illegality is based on how the information was obtained, what's shared, and if malicious intent is attached to the publication.
Mm-hmm.
That's too specific.
yeah, I was just like, because I was thinking about this, and like last week I had just gotten into a long conversation with one of my friends about Ed Kramer
Hmm.
and Dragon Con, and how that whole underage thing, and how it wasn't just Dragon Con, it was like other conventions in Atlanta, and I'm like, oh yeah, let me tell you about my experiences with this particular con and this particular person who ran parts of it and is dead now, so I'm okay with talking about it because consequences.
Yeah. Well,
I'm hoping
I'm
they'll
gonna raid Mike.
yeah.
Um,
So here's our show
let's
title
do that.
options. We
Okay.
have do November Cats Dream of Fish.
I put a raid call in there and it disappeared.
It's easier if they're dead. Linda's
I
getting
know.
canceled. And how about don't do shit to be ashamed of?
What was what's canceled?
Linda's getting
Oh,
canceled.
Linda's getting canceled.
When you were like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. That came out wrong.
That came out wrong. Whoops. Hmm.
Where is the show bot? I keep gonna launch it myself so I can,
But yeah, anyway, all of that kind of brought up those memories and thoughts of like the
I
early days of the internet and
Mhm.
I like
not so
It's
nice
easier if
exes
they're
doing
dead.
revenge stuff.
Yeah, that's the one I was leaning towards too. Cause yeah,
Which one? I'm sorry.
it's easier if they're dead.
I
That's
kinda want that one.
what I was leaning towards. I'm just like, I just think it'd be funny. It's like we're talking about cancel culture. Title is it's easier if they're dead. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Well, cause yeah, it's like okay, well, who's gonna benefit from them now? Like, where's
Yeah.
that money going? Is it going to their family? How is their family responding to them relative being a POS?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm cutting and copying and pasting our raid call. Although it looks like hardly have anybody watching anymore. There. Went from 4 to 3. I'm guessing Rob logged off. My husband actually watched the show. Never watches the show. Alright, cool. Alright, so I'll talk to you guys. Thanks. I'll talk to
Yep.
you for the production meeting next week.
Yes.